you get what they give you. Scraps from the table, depending on how they determine how useful you may be. And that's the end of the discussion with them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Michael Voris Show. I'm your host, Michael Voris, and today I'd like to talk to you about the, we might say kind of a oddball thing, Catholic communists, or should we say communist Catholics. Before we do it, just want to remind you we have the Strength and Honor Conference, the men's annual Strength and Honor Conference right here at Church Militant, the first weekend of August 4th through the 6th. Just click on the link, men, and get your ticket. Men, dads, bring your sons, tell your dads, do you want to go? All the good stuff here. It's a great weekend. Always have a couple hundred, up to 300 guys here, and it's a lot of camaraderie and, a lot of sharing and all that. Like-minded guys all bonding together with the heart of the faith right smack in the middle of the whole thing. All right, Catholic communists or communist Catholics. All right, let me just blow right to the, not bury the lead for you. There's no such thing. There can't be a Catholic communist or a communist Catholic. So let's trace the history of this a little bit, shall we? When socialism as a thing really began developing in the mid-19th century, about the time of the U.S. Civil War. That's about the time Karl Marx and Engels are, putting out their, Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto and all of that sort of thing. So this is all happening in the mid-1800s. It's happening somewhat in reaction to the French Revolution, which was roughly 50 years earlier. There's a whole new way of thinking about mankind and thinking about individual humans. We've covered this before, this one little point before, but there can never be a situation where there's no one in charge. That can't ever be the case. Somebody, if there is a power vacuum, somebody will go into that vacuum and fill it up. So if you remember what happened in the French Revolution, it was really sort of the, I don't know if I say the high water mark, because things have certainly gotten worse since then, but it was really the beginning of the dismantling of the church as an organized, politically governing principle throughout Europe, at least Catholic Europe. Obviously, the Protestant revolt of the 16th century, put all the wheels in motion for that. But those Catholic monarchies and those Catholic governing principles all had to be wiped out. If you're a communist, if you're somebody who says, I don't want the church to be in charge, I want me to be in charge, I want the state to be in charge. So it gets stressed up as nobody's going to come along and say, hey, I want to be dictator. They say, I want to be your representative. Let's vote for the people. Vote for me. Bring me in. I'll do this. Until they get enough power, at which point they then become tyrants and rule over. So socialism is supposed to be for the good of the social order, society. Doesn't work out that way. Never works out that way. If you want to fast forward about 50, 60 years past Karl Marx, for example, where do you wind up? You wind up with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which, what does it call itself when the dust has all settled and they start absorbing other little countries around Russia into them? It becomes the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republic. That is what USSR stood for, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So the idea behind it was that the state is in charge. And you want to draw a contrast here. There is the church's understanding that while the church, again, prior to the French Revolution, while the church is in charge and is the governing principle, the church leaders saw that they themselves were answerable to God. So the idea, the philosophy, the ideology, if you want to call it that, or the political philosophy prior to the French Revolution in Catholic countries, which was all of Europe prior to the Protestant revolt, is man has a certain dignity. Man must govern himself and be governed on the principle that he possesses this certain dignity. And what is the dignity? That man is made in the image and likeness of God. In Latin, sounding all fancy, we say the imago Dei, the image of God. That limits what a government can do. A government doesn't bestow your human rights on you. It protects those rights. Even a king, monarch, doesn't have absolute control and can simply just walk into your house and kill people and kidnap your children or rape your wife. Now, many of them acted that way, but they were eventually overthrown or rebelled against because that sort of Catholic shroud over the order and the governing of Western civilization said, no, that's wrong. Doesn't mean it didn't happen from time to time and there weren't despicable despot kings and that sort of thing, but it was not something that was blessed and accepted as the established order. It was always something outside of the order which had to be worked against, and oftentimes was. That's the Catholic governing principle. The socialist governing principle is that the state is where the buck stops. There's nothing higher than the state. Again, what's the contrast? In Catholic political philosophy, if you want to call it that, the church administers what is ultimately the will of God. It's God that runs the universe, and other people are his ministers in that, protecting human rights. So you have a right to live, you have a right to travel, you have whatever the various things are. On this side, you don't have any rights if the state takes them away from you, because the state is God. That's the difference. It really isn't, in the socialist mind, it isn't really the state versus the church. It's take it up a notch. The state is God. So the state bestows your rights on you, which means it is the state which gives you or grants you your dignity as a human being. And since the state is the one that gives, the state is the one that can take away. And we see this in, for example, the National Socialist Party, the Nazis. They say, you do not have human rights, you Jews, you gypsies, you Catholic clergy that oppose what we do in our view of the world, and then fill in the blank, anybody else. You don't have a right even to live, meet a gas chamber, meet a concentration camp. You don't have any dignity, you don't have anything. We are the ones who bestow that on you. So when all of this that's the outcome of this view. When this view was starting to gain traction, of course, under the cloak, not under the cover, under the cloak of, well, we want to protect people and, we want to strike back at the wealthy, and this class warfare needs to be set up, and it's the haves versus the have-nots and all of that, and it's right for labor to rush forward and take control of the operation from management or the owners of capital. That's the way it was all dressed. Well, listen, if you're on the low end of the socioeconomic ladder, that sounds great to you. Yeah, why should those rich people, those rich fat cats have everything? I want some of my stuff. And that's how they agitate to bring about a certain revolution. Okay, you can have an argument about, should wealthy people have that much wealth? That's a whole different discussion. My point is that there is an appeal to that if you are somebody who is very poor. The problem is that while you sign up for that battle thinking you're going to be getting something from it, you're actually being used. You're a pawn, you're a tool being used by the agitators of all of that for them to become the power. All that's happening is you're just switching out dictators. They're telling you that you are equal and you should have the same rights and access that the wealthy have. So they promise you that, but that ain't going to happen. That the fulfillment of that promise will never happen. And all you have to do is just take a look at, for example, the old Soviet bloc housing. Everything in East Germany, for example, when the Soviets, after World War II, shortly after World War II, built the Berlin Wall in the very early 1960s, and they set it up to keep things apart. They had barricades and all of that to keep West Berlin, which was free and capitalist and American and British run. The other side of that wall, East Berlin, was gray and dismal and awful. Thank you for watching The Michael Voris Show. If you'd like to watch the entire episode, please head over to churchmilitant.com and sign up as a premium member. If you need to sign up to become a premium member, go to churchmilitant.com/go premium.